And welcome to Rock Out Loud Live. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a very special guest. By the way, do you know why it's a very special guest and a very special day, Andrew?
Yes.
Why?
Because I'm getting interviewed.
Well, not the fact that we're here for 1 year. Today's our 1 year anniversary, and that's why we chose you. But for our 1 year anniversary. That's why it's also a special. So you're like the top special guest of all special guests to be honored for our anniversary. So no, it's not all about you, ladies and gentlemen. It's also about special guest Andrew. Andrew, say hello to the world, Andrew.
Hi.
That's all you got? Okay, so I'm gonna actually introduce your drum instructor, whose name is Victor. But a little bit about Andrew. I remember Andrew coming in for his very first lesson, and there's something that happened with the calendar, and we made a mistake. And you came in for your lesson, and Victor wasn't here at that time. And I'll go back a little bit, and I'm not going to take up all the story because this is all about you, but I'll go back. So about 16, 17 years ago, I opened up a school in Staten Island in New York, but I've been teaching for like 30 years. And this was the first time that I was able to teach somebody here at Rock Out Loud. Like I was training all the teachers, I was doing all that one-on-one, but you were the first student I taught at Rock Out Loud. I'll never forget you for the rest of my life, maybe another 20 years from now, but you have hundreds of years. But for the rest of my life, I'm never going to forget you because you were my first student here. And I remember sitting there playing with you. You picked up like that. But you know what I really took away from that lesson? What do you think? That you were great? Yeah, you were great. What else?
Well, I kept the beat.
You kept the beat? Yep. That's it?
I don't know, because I was very beginner there.
You were, but you were so eager to learn. Like, you were focused. I remember watching your eyes, and everything I said, you were so focused. And I said, this kid is like a sponge. You were going to absorb this and be amazing. And the only time I speak to Victor about the students is when he brags about you, because we talk about bands and stuff. He's like, Andrew's my best guy. Andrew's my best guy. And it's true. He is. I think you're one of his favorites. So don't play this to any other of Victor's students. For sure. Please don't do that. We can cue in an applause, Buckley. An applause and maybe some laughter in the background. So long story short, you were the first lesson, and I really connected with you because not only you were my first lesson, I was your first lesson, right? And then I saw you, I think, in Wegmans a week or two later, and you remembered me. I'm like, holy crap, this guy remembers me. So maybe it was a good lesson, and the rest has been history. You've been here ever since, and I wanted to honor you because I think the world of you. You're a great kid. I mean, you're so polite. You come in here, you always say hello. That means you got great parents, by the way. They taught you well. And you also go next door to Elite Karate. You come in here, and if Victor's ever bad, he doesn't have a good day, you say, listen, I'm going to beat the crap out of you because I know Kung Fu. But you're almost a black belt, right? How close are you from a black belt?
6 months.
6 months. And how many years have you been doing this?
About 3.
Holy mackerel. So you see, you're committed. So maybe it's a lot of the karate, and we'll plug Elite Martial Arts right next door, right? Awesome. So what was your experience like that very first lesson? Because that's what I wanted to learn from you, because now you knew that Rock Out Loud was my first time teaching you. You were my first student. But what was it like for you? Because it came into a brand new place, and you see this really handsome guy who's playing the... Go ahead.
I really liked it because it was more of a learning experience because I was with, like, the top.
The top? Well, you didn't know you were with the top at the time.
Yeah,
right?
but now I know.
That's what I love about you. But now, when you transitioned to Victor, how was that?
It was good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like how he always talks to me more about what I need to focus on.
Great.
He just doesn't go straight through not saying what I need to work on.
Got it. And that's important.
Yeah.
That's important. Okay, so I'm going to pass this mic along to Victor. We're recording. Victor, one of the senior coaches here. Victor, this is all yours.
All right, thanks for getting the party warmed up, Mike. And just for the record, I love all my students. So, Andrew, I guess my first question for you is, why drums? What drew you to that instrument specifically?
Because really, in school, I just went and I just guessed that I would like drums first, and then I chose my second pick. I didn't really like my second pick, which was like clarinet. I ended up being the one kid in my class that didn't get drums.
Wow. Really?
Yep.
The one kid in your class.
Yep.
And
So then I figured out that Rock Out Loud was opening up. So I ended up going to try it out, and I liked it.
that's really awesome. And in addition to music, you also do karate next door, as Mike mentioned a couple minutes ago. Um, and I was wondering, what similarities are there between how you learn drums and how you learn karate? Like, what do you think goes into learning a skill in general and not just drums? Or
Well,
not just karate?
in karate, you more have to like work toward it. Cause I find drums just really easy for me. Like I could catch on to a beat pretty easy, but with karate, I do have to work for things more.
Mm-hmm. And in drums, sometimes you have to work for things too. I mean, we
Yeah.
definitely find that if something challenging comes our way in terms of like a new beat that's kind of like got a weird rhythm to it, like we got to work on it and break it down.
Yeah, like
And
at the beginning, triplets.
yeah, I remember the triplets, and you picked up on them quickly, but we did have to work on them for a little bit. Um, so you were one of our earlier students here at Rock Out Loud, and you were with us from almost the beginning. And then right as like we were starting to pick up speed, the pandemic happened. And you were one of the few students that stayed with us on virtual throughout that whole process. And I was wondering, what was that like for you, being able to, learn drums in person, and then suddenly, boom, here we are on a screen.
To be honest, I didn't really like the screen learning because there's a lot of issues between the connection, and it was really just hard for me to learn.
But you kept sticking with it anyway. You didn't give up.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, what were you thinking that, because, obviously virtual learning pales in comparison to in-person learning. And when you came back, I noticed we got back into the rhythm of things, and you're learning all these songs, and you're playing the church band, and we will touch on that later. But before we got there, we didn't know when that was going to happen. We had a bunch of opening dates, and we kept pushing them back, and we weren't really sure when we were going to open up for in-person lessons again. So even though you didn't like virtual learning, what kept you going through that?
I just knew there was going to be a bright side at some point that I would be able to come back and start learning more.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is you wanted it.
Yeah, I just looked at what's ahead.
That's a great worldview. Do you find yourself applying that kind of outlook on life to other parts of your life, whether it's karate, school, what you want to be when you grow up? Because you seem to have the ability to kind of think ahead and think about the bigger picture, which is not very common in kids your age.
I just like to think what's ahead and see what would be best for the situation.
Mm-hmm. So what would an example of that be for, let's say, in school, right? I'm assuming you're still doing virtual learning in school?
Yeah.
So what about that? What's the silver lining to that situation?
Well, they're not really
for you?
teaching that much in school, so I'm really trying to keep up by reading and doing like a little bit of IXL every day.
And what's ISL?
IXL is like a learning platform. There's Spanish, social studies, science,
Okay.
ELA, math.
So you're pretty much learning how to teach yourself.
Yeah.
And would you say that that's the bright side of the situation? Because if you can teach stuff to yourself and do it well, that's really good for being able to learn other things like, karate, drums, maybe another instrument somewhere down the line.
Yeah. I'm really trying to work on ELA because I'm really good at math. I'm doing like,
That's why you're such a good drummer.
I play like a Prodigy game, which I really like, and it's putting me in like 6th and a little bit higher.
That's really cool. So, going back to how you're always thinking about the future and what's ahead, what do you want to do with the drums? And there's no right or wrong answer to this question because, like, some people, they want to play in a band and tour all around the world. Some people just do it as a hobby for themselves, and both goals and everything in between are perfectly valid. But I'm just curious to know what your plan is with the drums.
Well, It's really for me just a hobby that like I like doing. I don't really plan for future heads, but if that could be one of the things that I could probably do in a motor.
So it's less of a like, oh, I'm specifically going for this, and more of just let me hone my skills, work on the things that I enjoy,
Yeah.
and see what happens.
Yeah, I really just want to enjoy my experience as a kid, and then maybe get more serious on a motor.
That's cool. Hey, you're living in the moment, and gotta respect that. That's awesome. So despite only kind of seeing this as your hobby, at least for now, you recently started playing with your church band once things started opening back up. So, well, first of all, how did that come around? How did that happen?
Well, for years, the person that was looking for a drummer, the band was looking for a drummer. They couldn't find it for about 2 years, and then I started getting into drums, and I started getting good at it. So I'm like, why can't I be the drummer?
Why can't you be the drummer? And now you're the drummer. And how's that been since you started doing that?
Well, it's been a little bit nerve-wracking because, like, who knows who could be seeing this?
That's exactly how I feel right now.
You're the man on stage. Right?
Yeah.
We gotta work on that.
Yeah.
Do you have to say anything in confession if you make a mistake playing drums? When you go to confession?
No confession.
There's no confession?
No, we're Lutheran.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not Catholic.
We'll edit that part out. Get the confession.
No, there's no need to confess because he sees what's going on.
Got it.
So like, okay, so you were saying it was a little bit nerve-wracking, but you went ahead and did it anyway.
Yeah.
Now, how many people do you play in front of when you're playing at your church band?
Maybe like 30, 40.
Okay, so it's a smaller church setting?
More, yeah.
Okay. All right, so it's not like you went from just playing in front of no one or in front of mom and dad, you know, at your private lessons to playing in front of like 200-300 people, right? It's nice,
Yeah.
gradual.
It's more of
you know.
like a 50 people.
Yeah, start with like the smaller, medium-sized crowds, and as long as you're enjoying it, that's what's most important. So it's not like this is super important, but how do you find that people are reacting to, finally seeing a drummer in the church band?
Well, usually when I'm playing, I always see them applaud, and the pastor always like praises me.
That's pretty cool. Get praised by the pastor?
What about autographs? Does you get autographs?
Yeah, do you sign stuff? No?
No.
That's good. Stay humble. But if someone offers you $5 for an autograph, you know, they offered, right? So what was the, I guess, learning because up to that point, your experience with drums had just been one-on-one private lessons. And now here you are playing with a band, playing with other musicians in a live setting, and the band leader is telling you, hey, here are these songs, go learn them.
Well, he usually just throws stuff at me, but I try to catch on quick.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember one of the first songs we learned was a song called Shout to the Lord. And I remember we were breaking that one down for a while over our quarantine lessons over Zoom, and then later over RockOutLoud.live, which is a lot better than Zoom. But, you know, it kind of took a while. It was like putting pieces of a puzzle together. And then once we opened back up for in-person lessons and you came back in, boom, 1, 2, 3 lessons, and we got it. And you started playing at your church band, and it went really well. And then your band leader said, okay, here's these other songs, go learn them. And then you started to find, and I'd been saying this since the beginning when we would switch from learning grooves and fills to learning songs, is that there are certain beats where like you learn the beat and you can play like 50 songs with that beat, probably more. So what was it like getting to kind of experience that with the songs that you were actually going to be playing in front of people? It's like, okay, we had this one song, Shout to the Lord, and it took a while to learn that, but now that you do the groove from that one, you could play 50 other songs. And then you just started throwing them at you. So what was that like in the sense of you went from deciphering one song to boom, now I've got like 1 to 2 songs to learn every week?
Well, sometimes I'm like seriously, and sometimes like just throw me in.
Yeah. Just do it, right? Just
Yeah.
go for it, you know? One of the best pieces of advice I ever received from a music teacher was say yes, figure it out later. And it seems that you've kind of been practicing that as well, because every week we come in and it's like, oh yeah, there's this song, I didn't know it beforehand. I played it in front of the church crowd this weekend. And I find, how do you feel in terms of your confidence now, being able to do that?
Well, at the beginning, I was more like nerve-wracking. Now I'm more like, I really just don't care how many people are watching me.
Mm-hmm.
I just play and keep the beat.
Right, and sometimes that's all you need to do is just keep the beat. Doesn't matter who's watching, doesn't matter who's not watching. As long as the band sounds good, it's all good, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I had some other stuff I wanted to ask you about that. So I remember before quarantine, we were talking to you about that band program, and you were a little bit on the edge about whether or not you wanted to do it to play with other musicians. Then this church band thing comes along, and you start playing with other musicians like that. Now you're doing this. This is your weekly gig, pretty much. So how do you feel about it now that you're in it?
Well, I feel happy that I have some place to learn more and experience more of the drumming.
Mm-hmm. And do you find that that learning songs challenges you a little bit?
A little bit. When I'm learning, it's just usually the same beats, really.
Well, usually it is, but today we actually tackled a song that had a completely different groove. And I know your band leader usually says for those, oh, just play that groove, that they kind of rearrange it their own way to make it work. But now, like, as you start expanding your kind of like your toolkit, right? You've got more tools in your back pocket that you can pull out. And now, okay, let's say you learn one beat, you can play 50 songs. Well, you learn 2 beats, you're a math guy. Now you can play 100 songs, right? And then you can combine them, mix and match them different ways. So I'm wondering, how do you think playing with other musicians helps you be a better drummer?
Well, it really gives me a better motion of the beat, and I could really just listen more to the song and more experience the music.
Right, so it's less of an intellectual game and a learning exercise and more about being in the moment with the other musicians.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna throw a trick question at you, and there's no right or wrong answer, but I just want to see your take on it. What's the difference between being a drummer and being a musician who plays the drums?
The difference is that you're playing in front of a lot more people instead of just doing one-on-one with a teacher.
Mm-hmm. What about in the way you approach the music? So are you thinking about just the drums as an isolated instrument, or are you thinking about how what you're playing works or doesn't work, what works, what needs to be changed with the other musicians?
But when I'm playing one-on-one, I like to be more creative and add in more fills and stuff like that. But when I'm playing in front of people, I more just keep it a simple beat and keep it like
Right.
more of a simple.
Right. So there's a concept in drumming or really for all musicians, but especially drummers, especially those of us who like to go crazy, guilty as charged. The concept is called serve the song, right? And, when we're in our lessons, it's fun to, go crazy on those fills because you learn something new and you improve your chops that way. But when you're playing with musicians, especially in front of the crowd, it's one thing if you're just jamming, but if you have set songs that you need to learn, and especially for, if it's for a church service, then the purpose isn't really the performance, but the purpose is for the service. And so you don't want to over embellish, and from what it sounds like from what you're telling me, when to hold back when you're playing with other musicians. And sometimes, a fill or chops, it works. But when you're playing with other musicians, you need to think about, okay, we're coming up at the end of this chorus. I want to, go back into the verse. Oh, there's that crazy fill I was working on that requires me to use like 8 limbs and 50 drums, but will that serve the song? Does the song need that? And especially for a church band, does the service need that? And so it seems to me like you have the ability to kind of think critically about that and say, you know what, maybe I'll let the space in the music say what it needs to say, and we can just go to the next part of the song. And I think that's a really impressive skill to have, especially for someone your age, because when we're young, and especially, like you said, when we're playing one-on-one, we just want to go crazy on the drums, right?
Yeah.
But when you're playing with other musicians, you got to think about how your part sits with the other parts. And it's like, well, I'll let you take it, because I've been rambling for a little bit, so I want to know what you think about that.
Well, I think really when you're playing, like, I don't really want to mess that much up, so I don't want to be too creative, because sometimes when I do that little bit creative, he goes like, mm-mm. And I know to just stop there.
I've gotten that before, yeah.
So I know just to stop right there and just keep back the beat and not go crazy.
So,
Is he the oldest in the band, or is he the youngest in the band?
are you the oldest in the band, or are you the youngest in the band?
Youngest.
You're the youngest, okay. So, how you don't have to name names, but how old is the out of all the members except you, how old is the youngest member?
Me at 10.
Or besides you, the second youngest member?
I wouldn't know, because every time there's a different singer, so I would probably say 42.
42. Okay, so you're playing with musicians who are around like somewhere between like 25 and 35 years older than you. And is that like, how do you feel about that? Is it intimidating? Is it exciting? You're playing with experienced musicians, and you haven't even been playing drums for a year, yet they want you in their band. So what's going on in your head thinking about that?
Not much.
There's no pressure at all being like, the newer guy, and here's these experienced musicians I'm playing with. Oh my gosh, you're just in the moment, you're playing and you're having fun.
I don't really care about how older the people are and how experienced. I just really care about how many people are watching me.
Ah, okay.
But every time I play, I get more calm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom always says, don't put so much pressure on yourself. Because sometimes I think I do bad, but everybody just applauds, and I'm like...
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of playing live music, is that, like, sometimes you make a mistake, and you just got to play through it and just keep the song going. And, I'll tell you, professionals make mistakes, right? But back before the age of coronavirus, when live music was a thing, every show I make at least like 2, 3, 4, 5 mistakes. Some of my favorite drummers I've seen who are in professional world touring bands and are like world renowned as like expert level virtuoso musicians, they make mistakes. So it's not really about playing it perfectly or making a mistake or not making a mistake, but it's about how you interact with the musicians on stage, how you interact with the music itself, and the feeling you convey to the crowd. I forget if it was it Mozart or Beethoven who said to play a wrong note is insignificant. To play without passion is inexcusable. That was Mozart. Thanks, Mike. So when you're up there, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, are you having fun?
Yeah,
Yeah?
usually.
Usually, okay. So what about it is most fun, and what would you like to do? What would you like to see about playing live music that would make it more fun?
Well, more that I get to be like more creative, because sometimes we're just more on key. Because that's usually what he wants me to do. He doesn't want me doing like the extra things that we don't need to add to it.
Gotcha.
He does want me to have fun though.
That's good. And so like at the end of the day, would you say that you are having fun, but you would like to see how else you can exercise your creativity?
Yeah.
That's cool. So, all right. So you've been playing with church bands. Do you have other friends who play music?
No, I have one friend that's considering maybe playing, but they're always pushing back on playing for the first time. They're nervous.
They're nervous. And you were nervous once too. And yet here you are. So we're going to wrap this thing up, but what advice do you have for people who, and especially kids your age, but I think it goes for anyone, who want to do something, want to try something new, like picking up an instrument or learning a new skill, pursuing a different career, but they're too nervous to take that first step? What would you say to them?
Well, just do it, and then who knows what could happen on the way. Just keep on going and see how it ends up going. If you don't like it, you don't have to continue it. You could start doing it. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it. If you like it, keep on doing it to your fullest ability.
Fantastic advice. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Fazio, one of the best students here at Rock Out Loud.
Thank you very much. A round of applause. That was great.